All right, hello everybody, and welcome to the Forging Life podcast. I am your host Trey Ryder, and today we have a very special guest. I have with me J.R. Spear, and he is known for many different things. And I will actually allow you to explain a little bit about yourself. Welcome, J.R.
Welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on your show.
So tell us, what exactly is it that you are helping people do currently?
Yeah, I do a heck of a lot of things. But the main thing that I help focus on is serving one more is kind of like my vision. And I want to talk a little bit about that before I go into exactly what mine is, because for the longest time, I've struggled to figure out exactly what my whole vision was the past couple of years. And then it was a few weeks ago, I was at church with my son. He goes to preschool at the same place as my church. And on the wall, it was the vision of my church, and it was for one more. And I'm like, that's it. Even though it's the vision of my church, I want to make that the vision of who I am, what my program is, and it's for one more. What I mean by that, it's almost going back to like that movie where the kids are out there teaching someone to make a difference, and they go out and help someone else, and they go out and help someone else. And that's kind of like the same method that I want to do for my vision, and what I want to do for my business is I want to help for one more person that I can make an impact, help them make an impact in other people's lives, and together we're making a bigger impact in the world. So that's going to ultimately be my vision. But my main business of what I do is I help coaches build authority online and to acquire high quality leads. And I do so through several different systems and strategies that we do. And, whether it's using social media or whatnot, or funnels and all that different stuff. And I have three different pillars with my business where we focus on the coaching, the done for you marketing, and plus accountability, and have built a pretty decent sized business. And I'm really enjoying what I do because I feel like I'm actually now making a legacy and building a business that I enjoy because I'm making an impact in a lot of other people's lives. Because remember, it's for one more.
Dude, that's outstanding. And
Yeah.
the big thing in some of the previous interviews I've had, a lot of the breakthroughs in people's lives and their happiness actually came from helping other people out.
Yeah.
So just by focusing on that one, you help that person, and then you adapt, and then you start the next focus. So let me guess, this just all fell into your lap. You became completely successful with nothing going on, right?
Oh yeah, it happened overnight. I mean, if
That,
you're looking from the outside, people may think that, and it's like anyone that is successful, you see them online, and it's like, oh man, this person must have just woke up and got a six pack abs, or this person must have woke up and had this much money in their bank account. Yeah, it all happened overnight. There's no backstory to my life.
exactly. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me, kind of thinking the same thing, that where I've actually am now in life. And it's like, man, there's so much to the backstory that nobody truly knows.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about these podcasts is we're actually able to implement or speak about some of the backstories and let people know that it's not just all fairy tales. We have
Yeah.
to sit there and put in the work to become the people we want to become. So
Yeah.
tell us, you are where you are today with your coaching business and helping people with marketing and coaching. Uh, how specifically did you get there? What was your hero's journey?
Man, it depends how much time you want to give me. I can go on and on about this, but essentially, it started from the day that I was born, and I say that because uh, I literally came out of my mother kicking, and we grew up I have four sisters. We grew up in a family-owned business, and it was a martial arts school. So I say I came out of my mother kicking. I literally came out kicking. Where from the first day that I can walk, I started martial arts. I started kicking. I started teaching when I was 12 and 13 years old, and that really taught me a lot about leadership and character, and just building my confidence and being in front of people. And if I really look back at my childhood and my lifestyle, I would think that I had a pretty rough lifestyle. It was just very different than the average person. But I'm very fortunate for what I went through because I didn't really know a stranger. So I was always out there serving and helping people and doing what I can to really give back. And that really exemplified throughout the rest of my life and the rest of my career where I'm at today. Because right out of high school, I went straight into the military, had a lot of experiences in the military itself. And I can go through the backstory of a tragic event that I went through that really shaped who I am today. But I went in the military because I didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself. I was getting, even though I grew up in a very disciplined home with building character and leadership, I went through a phase of my life in my later teenage years where I was rebellious and I was hanging out with the wrong crowd and I was getting in trouble and I was having probably hundreds of different traffic violations and ending up in holding cells in jail to be, pulled out with a bond because I couldn't pay a ticket off or whatever it may be. So I was just always getting into trouble. And I knew the only way that I was going to make myself better is if I changed my environment. And I didn't recognize that myself. It was actually my grandmother that encouraged me and pushed me. Well, I can't really say that encouraged me. She pretty much told me, saying, hey, you know what? You're going to be signed up in the military. I remember one day she drove me to a recruiter's office and was like, hey, you're not coming back in this car until you sign up for a branch of the service. She didn't care what branch, but she just wanted me to do it. And so the funny part is, I'm sitting in front of the recruiter's office. They had all 4 branches inside there. I mean, it could be 5 if you count the Coast Guard, but I don't really count that as a branch of the service. But I knew I never wanted to go Army or Air Force for whatever reason. My uncle was a Marine, and my grandfather, who was a huge part of my life, was retired Navy. And but my dad was Army. But at the time, I knew it would either be Navy or Marine Corps. And at the stage of my life, I was like, okay, Marines are too tough. They work too hard. I don't want to go Marine. So I went in, I signed up for the Navy, and that was the beginning of that story. But the sense of humor and what God had planned for my life was way different because I signed up for the Navy, and then it was like as aviation boatsman handler or something like that. Went into boot camp and found out about this job called an RP. It was a religious program specialist. I was chaplain's assistant, security for the chaplain in the combat zone. And right out of boot camp, when I went to my training, I ended up going to a modified Marine Corps combat training and ended up spending the next 4 years with the Marine Corps anyways. So here I didn't want to go to the Marines because they worked too hard, but I ended up spending the whole 4 years with the Marine Corps anyways. And I'll tell you, that is the best way. That was the best thing for me. I probably would have hated the ship life and everything else. I loved where I was at, what I did, and it was a great time. But I really want to point out some strategic things that your audience can gain from that really later on in my career helped me identify certain key aspects that I learned from the military itself. And you could take this as part of your personal life or your professional life. I don't really care, but it is a method that I call I.C.E. And it's something that I created myself. And it stands for identify the threats, create a plan, and execute the mission. So what people don't realize when they get into the entrepreneur world, they try to model their business from all these other places, maybe from school, maybe from other successful people. But what they really need to look at is the model of the military and the Marine Corps specifically. And I know you weren't in the Marine Corps, so I won't put that against you. But the Marine Corps specifically, and every branch of the service does really well with this, where the military itself is a business altogether. And it is the best operation you can imagine when it comes to business because they have a system for every system. They know exactly the operation of how everything works. Doesn't matter if a PFC or a second lieutenant goes in the service. So if they go from Chicago to Europe or to Djibouti or whatever it may be, everyone knows their place and what they have to do and what they need to accomplish because they're trained that way. And everyone knows exactly what their job is and what they have to accomplish. And it may be a little bit different based off the command, but essentially everyone knows their place, how things are ran, what needs to get done to be able to keep that operation going smoothly. And that goes the same thing when it comes to your personal life. If you're going to be running your house, you got to run a type ship, whatever you want to, however you run your family, and so that way you guys aren't just living your life in chaos or in survival mode. So you got to have a vision, you got to have a plan, you got to know where you're going in your destination to be successful in life. So before I get into I.C.E. and everything like that, I want to open it up very specifically that on February 7th, 2007 was a day that really changed my life forever. And it changed my life personally. It changed my life professionally, every aspect, because I still suffer from a lot of the pain and the struggles that I went through on that day. And on February 7th, 2007, I was blown up in a suicide bombing. I was about feet away from a guy that killed himself at a walking checkpoint, Barwana, Iraq. And it was devastating. If you really take the picture of everything that took place on that day, you can really turn it into a movie. You had all the chaos of bombs coming in, people, all the Marines scattered out, doing their job. What they had to do to go patrol the city to see if there was any more danger. Helicopters flying in, smokes everywhere, sparklers going, medical people going and getting the people that were injured or much less killed, patching bullet wounds, body parts everywhere. I'm talking about heads. I'm talking about arms, legs, torsos, just scattered out everywhere. And it was the biggest bloodbath I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was only feet away from this guy that killed himself. And to take a step back, a little bit before the blast actually happened. I was at the center of checkpoint of where everyone was walking in and out of the city. So I can be at the center where I got to see everyone that was walking in and out. So it was like that kind of crosswalk. And I was there for probably 30 to 45 minutes with another Marine. His name was, and I was Navy, just so you know. So I want to put me in the bubble of, if I have another Marine that hears this, be like, oh man, I served with him. He wasn't even a Marine, but I was in the Navy that attached to the Marines. But I was standing there with another Marine. His name was Corporal Emery at the time. He's now Sergeant Emery, but we were just in there chit chatting for the longest time. My chaplain was around the corner, couldn't see him. And for the longest time, I was like, okay, I'm sitting there chatting with him, just talking to him, talking to the locals that are coming by. And I was like, okay, where's the chaplain at? And I got the urge that I want to go check on him. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go check around him. He's around this corner where the HESCO was, and talking to another senior Marine. And I passed by my Sergeant Major. Sergeant Major ended up standing right where Corporal Emery was. And then right when me and Sergeant Major crossed paths with each other, the guy killed himself. And I saw the chaplain. I was blown. I was probably knocked unconscious, lost all feeling in my right side. I didn't know if I lost a limb. All I knew is I had straight tunnel vision, ringing in my ears. I still get ringing in my ears all the time, every single day on my right side, and loss of hearing and all that different stuff. My right arm is jacked up with my back. I live with pain 24/7. And I saw my chaplain on the ground. He was trying to crawl to safety because we thought it was mortars coming in. We didn't know it was a suicide bombing. So I dragged him back to this flak, and I pulled him to safety underneath this barricade shelter that we had. It was probably 25 to 50 yards from where we're at. And where I was standing, my Sergeant Major that crossed paths with me, he ended up being right where I was at, and he ended up dying in that suicide bombing. And he was only not even a couple months away from retiring from the Marine Corps as well. So he had a full life ahead of him. And when I look back, it was devastating. It was hard, and it was actually not even until this year where I felt comfortable even talking about it. And I was encouraged by other colleagues and people that I started networking with and learning from. Like, man, you got a story, and people need to hear it. And it's bigger than just the suicide bombing. So I want people to kind of hear the framework of it. But what I really want people to really grasp is the next part. And it took me years to really understand this, that I never really understood up until more recently, was when I look back at the whole blast and just how the whole operation happened and how everyone knew their place and what they needed to do. It was like a full operation. And what I mean by full operation, everyone knew what their job was and what they had to do during that situation. We were ambushed. People were blown up. There were people that were sick, people that were getting killed, and tons of injured. But all the Marines went out on patrols to check, see if there's any more danger. Like I told you, there's helicopters come in, Marine corpsmen and other Marines attending to the other people that got injured and killed. Well, we lost 3 people that day. Corporal Emery, who I stand by, lost both of his legs as well. So he's completely limbless from hips down. So, and then we, from me and then other people, it was a massive bloodbath, but everyone knew their place. And I look back and I'm like, man, yes, it was devastating, but seeing how everyone reacted to it was phenomenal. It's like no one had time to think. They just reacted. And I don't know if you've been in time for a situation where you were in a combat situation where you had to do something like that. I know you shared your story one time where you had a gun pull on you and you reacted to it. And it was it's something similar, but they built that muscle memory. And the point that I want to make is, and why I came up with I.C.E. is we train so hard for 4 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years for that one day where you're going to be ambushed. And what I consider an ambush in your personal life or whatever in your professional life, it doesn't mean that you're going to get blown up, but it could feel like you're being blown up because it's anything that's going to throw you off balance in your life. So whether it's going to be a death in your family, whether it's going to be a client wanting to quit, whether it's going to be you get injured, whether your car needs to have this maintenance and you don't have the money to pay for it, whether it's COVID that happens, are you going to be prepared and making sure that you're mission ready when those ambushes actually come your way? And this is where I.C.E. really comes in play. First, you need to identify what the potential threats are so that way you can train for it. So before this thing even happens, you need to make sure that you are mission ready. You are ready to respond without thinking when it does come. So if you have a death in the family, if you have an employee that's going to quit, or you need a fire, or you have a car accident, or you got a client that wants to quit, or whatever the situation may be, a recession in your economy, whatever it is, you need to make sure that you're 100% prepared for it. And that way it doesn't ruin or put you in a time of chaos or anything like that, or devastate you and your family. So when it comes to I.C.E., identify the potential threats before they actually come. And it's all those different things that I'm talking about before the ambush actually comes. The ambush, like I told you, is anything that throws you out of balance. What are those potential threats? And it can be anything to anyone at any certain time, but you need to know not if they're going to come, but when they actually come. Are you going to be prepared for it? If you're going to have a baby, a new baby in your life, well, that's going to change your life. Are you prepared for that? You need, because that's going to rock your world. You're going to have less sleep. You're going to have less time to take care of things that you want to do. You got to be prepared for that. The second part of ICE, identify your threats. Then you got to create a plan. So once you identify what those threats are, you got to create a plan of what you got to do to make sure you're prepared. So when you are ambushed, you are able to respond without thinking. So I always tell people you need to react or just do, don't think. So do, don't think. And the only way you can do that is by being mission ready. And then when you create that plan, then you got to execute that mission. And the mission is preparing and doing that training that you need to prep for in case for those what if days, or not the what if, but for those days that do come when you are ambushed, because they will come. You will have tragedy in your life. You will have death in the family. You will have something that's going to throw you off balance. But how are you going to react when that happens? Are you going to react appropriately and tactfully, or are you going to respond out of chaos and survival mode? How do you want to be? So when it comes to I know I'm kind of getting off target from your question and what you were asking me, but I feel like this is really important because this has really shaped me of who I am right now and where I'm going today and why I'm able to actually get to that point. So I've had a lot of success in my life, but I had a ton of failure. I probably had way more failure than I did success. In the past 13 years, I built 4 different businesses, from martial arts school to a big fitness business to an advertising agency, and now my coaching business. I've done corporate sales. I've done high pressure sales. I've done anything you can imagine in the sales industry, even membership sales, to get me to where I'm at today. And it's shaped me and molded me to have the skill set that I do from where I'm at. So to get to where I'm at, I had to go through all that tragedy pain. And even the pain that of going through Iraq and being blown up into suicide bombing had shaped me to who I am today, and even showed me appreciation of life and knowing that God has a bigger purpose for me and where I'm going than it would have ever been before. Because if I didn't go through that situation, I wouldn't have a good understanding of what God's vision, what his plan is for my life today. And I'm still trying to figure that out. I know he's got a big purpose. I know he's got a big plan for me. And if you want some goosebumps, listen to this. So that happened February 7th, 2007. I discharged from the Navy on May 31st when I got out in 2007. I'm sorry, we got back from deployment May 31st. I got out July 10th, where I went back to my hometown in St. Louis. When I got back home, my mom and I were talking. We're just kind of catching up. I never really told her any stories. I don't even, unless she's listening to podcasts and my stories, I never verbally told her the situations that happened. But she was telling me, like, hey, did something happen around this time and this time frame and around this month and stuff? Because she was at church, and there was a guest speaker who prophesied over and was praying over and was like, hey, is your son in combat? Is he over in Iraq right now, or Afghanistan or whatever? And she was like, oh yeah. And then he was like, I just want to let you know that something bad is really getting ready to happen to him, but just know that he is going to be surrounded by 1,000 angels and he's not going to be touched. And it was on that day, February 7th, 2007, when I was blown up. And this is the part that will give you goosebumps, is I had to be surrounded by 1,000 angels, because every single person, I was the closest one to the blast. Every single person had either body parts, blood, whatever. I had one little speck of blood in the back of my flak. That's it. My chaplain even had body parts from other people on his vest, on his Kevlar, and on his clothes. I had a speck of blood, probably as big, smaller than a dime, on the back of my flak. And he had body parts on him. And I was in direct contact with the suicide bombing was. So the only way that I was able to walk away from that blast the way that I did was by the grace of God and him watching over me with 1,000 angels. So when I came back, my mom told me that, and I was like, wow, that really explains it, because there's no way that I would been able to do it. And I prayed and memorized Psalm 91 every time I got in that Humvee. And I don't know if you know Psalm 91, but it talks about, how 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 come at your right hand, but you shall not be touched. That's what I prayed every single day when I went out there. And that really shaped a lot of who I am. And that's why I became more bold about telling what my story is, because I feel like God has a bigger mission for me. And I feel I'm starting to get more clarity that it's for one more, and that's for helping other entrepreneurs to make a bigger impact, to make this world a better place. And that way they can be able to provide for their family and themselves and give them more opportunities, rather than living through the safe life of security. So I've had failures in my martial arts school, had a lot of success. I had failures in my boot camp business, but had a lot of success. And so there's so many different things that I've gone through in life that helped shape me to where I'm at today, but it didn't happen overnight. And I don't feel like I would be able to make the impact in people's lives today if I didn't go through the tragedy and the hardships that I did in my life. I had to go through the times of in the military to give me that discipline and structure, to teach me of how to build systems, to teach me how to respond in relationship and communicate with people, and how to take orders, and how to learn how to respond and react and do without thinking. How to start a business, how to go through those trials of losing clients. I mean, all these different things, the sales process that helps shape me to where I'm at today. Because if you don't go through different hardships in life, it's really hard to see any type of success. Any person that gets success in life, personally or professionally, they got to go through some trials and tribulation, because that's what's going to really shape their character and who they are today. And if they think that it's going to happen overnight, then they're fooling themselves. Because the person that wants a six-pack abs isn't going to get overnight. They weren't born with those genetics. If they want to have six-pack abs, they work for it. You got to put in the reps. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the skill set. But you got to have a plan of action. I always tell everyone that without a plan or vision, you will fail automatically. You got to know where your destination is. You got to know where you're going. I don't care what it is, health journey, fitness journey, family plan, whatever your daily creed is, whatever your family ethos is. Excuse me. You got to have a plan or vision in order to get to that destination of what you want to accomplish. That way you can achieve it. And once you understand what that vision and what that destination is of where you want to go, you got to be able to get there and execute that mission, so that way you set yourself up for success. Yeah. So what I was saying was, like, if a person wants to have success in life, I don't care if it's in a personal journey or if it's a professionally, a person wants to have six-pack abs, they got to put in the reps and they got to put in the work to be able to get there. And it's same thing in their business. If they want to get to a certain level, they got to put in the reps to be able to get there. It doesn't happen overnight. But if you want to have success, no matter what area of your life, you got to put in the work. You got to know what it's going to take to get there, because without a vision, without a plan, you will fail. But if you know exactly where you want to go and what the potential threats are along the way, and you prepare for those potential threats and that you're expecting them, then you're going to be more prepared and you're going to be more successful when it comes to pushing them through. Because there is no overnight success unless you grew up in a millionaire, billionaire family or whatever, and it's just kind of handed to you, and you don't really have to work for anything. Chances of that happening is going to be very rare. But if you're like anyone else in society, you got to work for what you got to do, or for what you want to have in life. And to do so, you got to have a plan of where you want to go. And that's why it's really important, and why it made me come up with I.C.E. And I.C.E. identify those potential threats that will come, and when you are going to get ambushed, but create that plan so that you are prepared and you know how to react and do without thinking, and then execute that mission, execute the plan of action that you got to do to be able to make sure that you're prepared for it. So that's what really resonates with me to really help me get to where I'm going, but also with my daily creed. So anyone listening to this podcast right here, I have my own podcast. It's called the Daily Creed Podcast. And the whole thing about it is the Daily Creed stands for your daily belief. And it's an ethos for me that I put into my personal life, my professional life. And it stands for, 5 key elements, which is your commitment, resilience, excellence, execution, and discipline. So you gotta find what your daily creed is. What are the things that you want to commit to, and you're going to be resilient through no matter what until you achieve that goal. And when I look at that daily creed, I am sticking to it, knowing like, hey, you know what, this is my goal and this is where I want to go. And I'm going to fight through it, knowing that there's going to be bad days, there's going to be tough times, but I'm going to push through as hard as I can until I get there. And no matter what, I'm going to be resilient. I'm going to give my best. I'm going to give excellence, not settle for okay, but give my best no matter what. And I'm going to execute that mission, and also be physically and mentally disciplined to make sure that I have the tactfulness to be able to accomplish the mission that I want to, where I'm going. So for anyone that's listening to this of where I want to go, I created the creed for myself as a reminder, but also I created I.C.E. as a plan and a mission of what I need to do to be able to get to where I'm going to go. Because it's not a matter of if you're going to be ambushed, it's a matter of when you're going to be ambushed. And you got to recognize what those potential threats are, so that you're prepared and you know how to react and do it without actually thinking. And it's building that muscle memory.
There's so much within what you have said. There's a lot of different nuggets. I've been sitting here taking a lot of different notes, and it really resonates with me. And it's very funny on some of these different topics, because some of the listeners were talking to me, and one was my dad. And he said, at this stage in my life, I don't necessarily resonate, or, I've never been to war, so I may not completely understand, or the fact that I've been able to experience things like you have, or, you have, JR. And it's true to a degree. And some of these things, I'm going to hit what I'm speaking about with my dad, for instance. And it comes down to we all have mud thrown at us in life. We're dealt with
Oh, 1,000,000%.
certain type of cards that we're trying to deal with.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of how we interact with those cards that we're looking for the next hand. And one of the things I told him, you know, certain things that are going on within our family, and I told him there's a difference between having pain, whether that's mentally, I'm not just talking about physically, having the mental pain, which is temporary, or dealing with suffering. And suffering is the continued pain throughout an extended period of time
Hmm.
that you're not getting over that pain.
Yeah.
And with you and your story that you're speaking about, and I say story, but your actual life events that have gone on with dealing with that suicide bomber, and no matter what's going on in somebody's life, things are going to happen around us, and it's going to be how we frame exactly what is going on.
Yeah.
Now, are we going to take that and is that going to be our pain, or are we going to take that and become suffering? And a
Yeah.
lot of military, and not just military, police officers, law enforcement, individuals that have been through a tragic event can end up putting it into suffering.
I want to hit on that really quick because like I'm running into. I had a conversation with one of my new sales reps on my team that I just brought on board a couple weeks ago, and they came from a different environment with a different person. And I'm sitting there talking to her. We had like a very close one-on-one conversation. They're in a different country, so we're doing it through Zoom and stuff like that. But I'm like, you were really hurt. Like they went through the last boss that they worked for, and he's another business coach for fitness professionals. They it was such a toxic environment for them that they have major trauma because the way that I realize it is like every time they do something for me or they're on the phone with me, it's like they feel like they have to apologize, like, hey, I'm working hard, I'm doing this, and and just I promise you, I'm doing everything I can to make things happen. I have a lot of conversations of like, hey, calm down, lower the temperature a little bit. You're not going to get fired. So, but felt like if they didn't make a certain amount of calls or do the certain amount of thing that their job is on the line. And and I love how that you said that trauma doesn't necessarily have to be just a war, but honestly, we're all in a war of some kind, and we all can experience trauma of some kind in their life. And for them, that is a threat, and they need to be prepared for it, and they need to know how to respond to it. And it's having that creed, it's having that emotional discipline and knowing how to respond to it. So I got some work on me on being a leader so I can lead them to say, hey, you know what? We're in here together. We're going to push through it together. You're not alone, and we're going to be able to help each other out. But I love how you said, like, it's not just trauma of people that go to combat, and it's not just the people that do that. It's you can experience trauma anywhere in life. And I don't know how that ties into what the story is, but whatever you just said right now kind of resonate with the conversation that I just had with one of my employees this morning. And it's so true because
it's a big difference, and I try
yeah,
to make sure that anybody can relate, and not just veterans or military personnel, because we can sit here and talk about our experiences, but there's a lot of listeners that have not experienced that.
yeah,
And some of the things I want to speak about, you talked about ICE and identify the threat. Okay. So, in a standpoint, well, I got two things on this. Is one, it's about stop playing defense in life. It's about playing offense. And that's where your ICE actually comes into play. So when you're
was being
identifying the
proactive rather than
threat,
reactive.
yeah, exactly. And you're
Yeah,
identifying the threat. And what is a threat? Maybe it's money.
yep,
Maybe it's insurance. You don't have insurance. What happens if, I passed
yeah,
away? Is my family taken care of?
can be
Those are
debt.
all different threats. What happens, with COVID? People are losing jobs, or jobs are being shut down. Whatever it might be, it's identifying that threat. Well, how can I come up with different avenues, different ways to make money? And that goes into your next spot of
Yeah,
creating the plan. Okay, instead of sitting here being a victim, we need to think forward on how we can overcome this. So
absolutely.
it's a lot of what you're talking about, I've sat here and I've taken these notes because a lot resonates, and I want to make sure a lot of these listeners can implement it into their life.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a lot of nuggets that you've passed out. And without a plan, plan to fail. It's one of the big things I've always heard and understood and tried to tell my kids and everything else too. It's a big factor in life. So thank you for, sitting there expressing that stuff. And you also talked about martial arts. And I know you recently had. Hey,
You there?
yep.
I was just getting ready to message you.
Do you know where it knocked out at?
Yeah, you said that without a plan and a plan to fail, this is something I teach my kids, and then you cut out.
Okay, that's a good part to just kind of cut it out then. All right, so one of the other things you talked about was martial arts. And you recently had somebody on your podcast talking about martial arts and his own company and building into what it is today.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, you also have that implementation, one of your businesses within martial arts. Is that correct?
I don't have martial arts right now into my business.
Okay, so you just practice it.
Not so much anymore. When I got back from Iraq, my first business was I owned a martial arts school, and that was out of St. Louis. I live in Virginia now. So, unfortunately, because of my injury for my back from the suicide bombing, I can no longer practice. I can, and I still will practice on my own with certain different things. But, with how intense my back pain is 24/7, I just one day of training at the level that I was, it would put me out for like a week or two where I just couldn't move. So that's actually what pushed me to teaching a lot more, because I wanted to come back, and I used to be a competitor. I traveled all over the US and competed in martial arts and different competitions and stuff like that. And that's what I want to do. I want to get back and compete. And just because of the injuries that I had, I couldn't do it, and went through a very much emotional time at that time. But that's what really transitioned me to start teaching. And I'm very grateful for that, actually.
And with your business and being able to teach and coach and everything else, is that something that you had success like overnight as well? Or did you have a bunch of failures along the way for that?
For teaching and coaching?
For your businesses?
Yeah. I've had a lot of success, but I've seen a lot of failure. I had the ups and downs. I had to put in the reps to do it. I had the sleepless nights wondering if people were going to pay their bills, or am I going to lose 10 clients today, or whatnot. So it's tough. It's a competitive world out there, especially when for the business that I have for my group fitness business. Even for my coaching business now, I started about 3 years ago, and it was a slow, rocky start. Didn't really have a good message that could stand out against all the other competition. Didn't really know what my message, what I was wanting to do. I knew how to build businesses. I've helped a lot of other people, but never really did it for pay, or never didn't even know what to charge people. But I didn't know how to stand out against all the crowd and the noise, because there's so many business coaches out there that are helping different people, that it was really hard for me to do it. And it wasn't until about a year and a half ago, where my message started coming to light. My business started really taking off and exploding. And that had a lot to do with nailing down what my message was, what exactly I wanted to do, and what's going to make me different from my competition. And right now, I haven't found any of my competition doing what I'm doing at all.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're doing and how you're implementing that and some of the success that people have had within your group.
Yeah. So what really makes me different, first off, when you hire a business coach, is they are really good at giving you the strategies that you need to go out there and implement it. But the problem is that I found, after hiring multiple different coaches myself, is you get inside this program, one main problem that it is first off, they rely so much on the evergreen because they want to expand and grow their business, that everything's digital. And if you ever want to have time to be able to speak to them, you're waiting who knows how long, 1, 2, 3 weeks before you can even get on a call with them. And before then, that time's already passed, and you don't even need that help on that question that you had. So that I struggle with that. It's like they want to charge you $10, $15, $20,000 for a 12-month program to be able to get access to you, to get the strategies. And even though you can gain a lot of value from it, it's like, well, if I'm going to invest that much time and money in it, I want to be able to have full access to you. And that was a struggle in itself. The second thing is they'll give you the strategies, but now let's just say they want you to go out and build a funnel, or they tell you need to go do ads. They tell you need to go hire a VA system. They need to tell you that you need to go get a graphics designer. So you spent 10, 20, 15, 20,000 or whatever for the coach to give you the strategies. Now you're going to spend 10 to $20,000 for someone to actually build your funnels and do your graphics design and take care of your marketing. I was like, you know what? I built so many businesses myself. Every person that I'm taking care of their funnels, I'm having to go over the strategies and implementation as well. I'm going to create a hybrid program where I'm going to do all of that. I'm going to give you the strategies and coach you along the way, but I'm also going to give you the done for you marketing, where I'm going to build your sales funnels, take care of your marketing, all the different stuff, and combine it into one program. And that's what really makes me different, is because they're going to pay one price and they're going to get the full spectrum of everything that they need, and they won't need to go anywhere else. And that's what's really separating me from all of my competition, and why I feel no one else can touch me on that area.
Outstanding, man. As once again, I'm sitting here taking notes as you're sitting here speaking, and your success. I resonate with it because through coaching, podcasts, getting certain courses out there, I've said earlier in this specific podcast, it has been a long road.
Yeah.
And people will see that success or a certain aspect of success and think that you've made it. And it doesn't matter how far you've made it, there's still struggles in every step of the way.
Every day.
If you want to continue being where you're at, or if you want to continue growing, there's going to be struggles. There's going to be challenges.
Yeah. With more growth comes more problems. I mean, the bigger you get, the bigger problems you're going to have, and they just all become different. And people can say, like, oh, I can handle those problems, but I'll tell you, not everyone can, because it becomes emotional. It becomes physically draining. I mean, you're dealing with emotions of clients, emotions of employees, of staff, or whatever it may be, technology. It becomes draining. And even for your family, you just got to know how to balance that, because when you get bigger, it's going to require more time from you. So learning how to manage and protect that time and have non-negotiable, saying, hey, you know what, I call for this time because I'm spending time with my family here, or I don't work on the weekends, I'm going to make sure to do this. Or if I'm going on vacation, that you learn to shut off. And it's tough. And being an entrepreneur is not all set. It's not all roses like everyone thinks it is. Yes, perks when it comes to being an entrepreneur, but it's not for everyone. I mean, I think everyone has something to give in this world, but if you don't have thick skin and learning and have the desire to take the sacrifice that it needs to be successful in life, then it's not a place for you, because it takes a heck of a lot of sacrifice. But to think that it's overnight success, there's a lot of failures. There's a lot of people who think that I'm extremely successful. And I'll tell you, I'm still not where I want to be by any stretch. I still have long ways to go of where I want to be, because right now I'm providing for my family. I'm providing for my staff. I'm providing for making sure my clients are being taken care of and I'm serving them. It's not about me. There's a lot of other people counting on me, and I got to make sure that I can perform at the highest level all the time. And there is no bad days. You can have a bad day, but you better suck it up and get out there and just complete the mission that needs to take place. But there is no bad days when it comes to running your business, because if you do, everything's going to suffer around you. And the emotional tactfulness of your entire business is going to respond about how you react to it.
It's very well said. And a lot of successful businesses are successful because of how the CEO is running, or the managers and supervisors are implementing things.
Absolutely.
It comes down with connecting to those individuals, and that plays a huge part in our success at home, our success at jobs, whatever it may be. Getting to that next step, it all starts with ourselves. Yeah. And how we treat other individuals, because how we're treating others is actually a internal dialogue of what's going on within our own mindset.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you did speak of, and we'll kind of start wrapping some of this up here, is you were saying if you're going out on the weekend or with family, shutting off for a certain time period. What are some key elements that have helped you balance your lifestyle?
Yeah, it's so funny because every podcast, and I get on a lot of podcasts, whether it's on my own show interviewing people or I go into other people's, I have to give a lot of credit to Craig Ballantyne, who is the founder, and they call him the godfather of the Perfect Day Formula. And he teaches something about scripting your day. And I put my own little twist to it, but essentially is if you want to have a successful day and a successful life, you need to script your day the night before, both personal and professional life. And what that means is the night before, you need to make sure you do a full out brain dump. What are the tasks and things that you need to get done the next day? Write that down first. The second thing is you need to do your three money making tasks. What are the three things that you need to accomplish that's going to move the needle in your business? Because so many entrepreneurs or people in life, they sit there and go through life and be like, hey, I'm getting things done, I'm productive and stuff like that. But the fact is they're just busy. They're doing things to keep themselves busy, but they're not doing the things that's moving the needle in their business. And you really have to focus on what are the needle moving things in your business that you're going to focus on. So what are the three things that you can get done the next day that's going to move the needle in your business? And the third thing that I like myself and all my clients do is put your top 10 list. The top 10 are 10 people that you need to make contact with the next day. And you write that down. So that way you're keeping it front of mind of 10 people that you need to reach out to. This could be already clients that you need to follow up with and just kind of give them some words of encouragement. This could be potential clients that you're working on. It could be a coworker. It could be an employee. It could be a family member. Who are 10 people that you need to intentionally be proactive in reaching out to that next day. So once you identify those three things, then you go right into the time blocking. And the time blocking is so important because you have to give everything a spot in your calendar to make sure that it gets done. Because if not, you're going to allow the phone calls, text messages, and social media run your entire day. So the way it works, though, is you need to block off your family fun time first. Anything family and fun related, that gets blocked off first on your schedule. And then the next thing you do is you block off your magic time. Your magic time is 90 minutes to 2 hours per day that it's where you identify that you're most creative and that you're going to focus on to get the three money making tasks done. So what time is that in your day? Usually it's going to be in the morning. So block that time off. And after you block that off, then it's everything else. So family fun time first, magic time, and then everything else gets blocked in first. But when I can tell you the days that I script my day the night before is the day that I'm most efficient with my time and have a much better day, much better outcome because I am now in control and I'm being proactive versus being reactive to everything that takes place throughout the day.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's a huge difference when you actually start implementing that into your life. Because once again, when I was not doing that, we're being reactive to situations. You feel like you're never getting ahead. You have all these big tasks. I can't remember one of the authors, but they always talked about eating the frog first thing in the morning, which is your hardest task, because after that, everything else is easier and you can implement. And it's okay that you don't necessarily get those other tasks accomplished. Eat the frog first and let the other things be okay with going away. So I thank you for definitely all those tips. And is there anything else you would like to share about either yourself or some key pointers or where people can and where people can follow up with you?
Yeah. So I always try to tell everyone that, figure out what your daily creed is. What are the things that you want to commit to and you're going to be resilient through giving your best and no matter what, and executing the mission until you reach that desired goal of what you want to achieve. So figure out what your daily creed is, put that in your, I call it a daily creed journal, put that in the journal and look at it every single day. So that way you constantly keep it in front of mind and that way you know what you're chasing. So figure that one out and then implement the I.C.E method, identify what your threats are, so that you're being proactive versus reactive, and then create a plan of what it's going to take for you to execute that mission. So do that. And then the last thing is, follow me on my podcast. It's called the Daily Creed Podcast Show. And I'm on Apple iTunes. I'm on Anchor. I'm on Spotify. I'm on all the different things. So, but look at my podcast, listen to my stories. I interview a lot of amazing people like you and other high hitters out there in the business world. But the whole point is giving you tips and strategies to help you level up in both your personal and professional life. Listen to my podcast, subscribe to it, and shoot me a review. I'd love to know what your thoughts are about my podcast show. And then find me on Facebook. My Facebook is Fit Pro Funnels is the name of my group. Find my group, shoot me a message, join my group, and I'd love to support you. I promise you I'm not going to hurt you. So shoot me a private message. I love to help and serve as many people as possible. And if I can make a difference in your life and an impact, I would love that opportunity to do so.
Outstanding. And one last question. I see some books behind you. What is a key book that you read that really impacted your life?
Yeah, a couple of them that I'm going to say, and one is First Steps to Wealth by Danny Johnson. And if you don't know who Danny Johnson is, she definitely teaches people about communication, how to communicate with people and effectively, and just understanding like the one thing in life that people value most of themselves, and just really knowing how to communicate. But it's a very, very easy read. But honestly, I read that book probably over 10 to 15 years ago, and it's been the most impactful book in my life. So that's the First Steps to Wealth by Danny Johnson. And I think she even gives it away for free. So it's like free plus shipping if you look it up online. Another book that was really impactful to me was Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson. And then another one was Dave Ramsey, one of Dave Ramsey's books, his main book. Can't remember the name of it, but I got it right behind me. So Dave Ramsey, look up his books. I mean, all of them are amazing, but his just kind of teaching you how to get out of debt and stay out of debt and things like that, and being proactive with it.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the personal development courses I went through, was one of Dave Ramsey's courses as well. So
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
absolutely. Um, so one of the things you talked about is the Daily Creed podcast. So for those of you that are listening, if you want to hear the episode that I was on, it aired October 27th. Feel free to jump over. Let that be your very first episode to listen to on JR's podcast, and make sure you definitely jump in there and listen to some of the others. He does some of the same things that I do. We do interviews, and then he also does short forms, just to be able to provide some type of value in your life. So other than that, JR, I appreciate all the information and you taking the time out to join us here on the Forging Life podcast. So hopefully you make the rest of your night the best of your night, buddy.
Appreciate it. Thank you.